Hey everybody, Papa Wiggs here with Wiggs. We're gonna do our week two recap of all Sunday's games. I know you guys are excited, so let's jump right into it. First game we're gonna talk about 49ers versus the Vikings. All I can say is wow. This was a crazy game. I wasn't expecting this outcome, Wiggs. I don't think you were expecting this outcome. Just a couple quick things. Obviously, I know everybody in Viking Nation and Skull Nation is excited and stuff, but let's not overreact. I'm still not sold here myself. I think our defense played really well in this game. Reality check too is San Francisco was without CMC. So we got to keep that in check. So but I thought the defense, did a really good job of pressuring Purdy. Purdy kind of struggled in this game, even though he threw for over 300 yards and a touchdown. He had one interception. He just didn't look like his normal composed self, so to speak. I thought Jordan Mason, he had an excellent game. So he looked good. Debo Samuel looked good. George Kittle looked good on their end. Uh, you know, one you know one person that I thought you know is a little concerning is Ayuk. Hopefully, next games for you Ayuk owners, you'll step up. So, and then on the flip side of things, I think the Vikings. Don't get me wrong. Sam Darnold looked okay. Um, I'm still not convinced he's going to lead us to the promised land. I'm really not. I think Ty Chandler actually looked a lot better than Aaron Jones yesterday from a rushing perspective. I'm not taking anything away from Aaron Jones because I think he is definitely talented and stuff. But Ty Jones actually had a much better game. He was averaging over 8 yards a carry. Uh, JJ looked really good. He had his 97-yard reception for a touchdown, 133 yards. So 23-17, a little bit surprising. I wasn't expecting that. Now the Vikings are at the top of the division. Wiggs, what do you think?
I think it was a pretty interesting game to watch. I was shocked by a lot of different things. Them getting the block punt early in the game was nice. I wish they would have came away with a touchdown rather than a field goal, but they looked good on defense all around. They got an interception. I believe they had a fumble recovery there as well. Our offense at times just needs to look a little bit better still. I think we struggled a little bit from time to time there, especially throwing the ball. I think Darnold still is getting into the swing of things here in this offense. He made a very stupid throw on the interception that he had, so hopefully he'll learn from that and kind of, use that going forward and mentally prepare himself because he's going to be going up against a lot more defenses that are going to be good. You got Houston next, you got the Jets, and then you got the Packers here. So we'll see how we perform here in the next few weeks before our bye in week 6.
Yeah, I thought they had a good game plan. He was getting the ball out pretty quick, but I think they did start to struggle a little bit once Jefferson was out.
Yeah.
Because they already are short Addison. So Jefferson's supposed to be back, hopefully this week. Kevin O'Connell had a press conference today and said that he was feeling pretty good this morning. So I don't think Jefferson's going to miss any time, which is good. So because obviously if they didn't have Jefferson and Addison, and I think they definitely would struggle. So yeah, the one guy that I think Vikings fans should keep an eye on this year that doesn't get enough credit is on the defensive line, Patrick Jones. I think it is. He had two. He had
Four
two
sacks total now.
Yeah, he's got 4 sacks total now. 2 sacks yesterday. He's been looking like a beast. He's actually looked better than some of the big name guys that they brought in and stuff. So yeah.
Seahawks Patriots.
Seahawks Patriots. This was a lot closer than I thought it was gonna be. I mean, I thought the Patriots would have pulled away. They came out with the win. JSN. That's all I gotta say. JSN. He had a breakout game, 12 receptions, 117 yards. Metcalf had a lot better game than I thought he was going to have.
Oh yeah.
129 yards, 10 receptions, a touchdown. Their rushing game wasn't there. Geno Smith threw for over 300 yards. That looked good. On the flip side of things, uh, the Patriots, Brissett, okay, 149 yards for a touchdown, only, a little bit over 50% completion rate, but not much over that. A little surprising to see Gibson. He averaged over 8 yards, almost 9 yards a carry, 11 carries, 96 yards. Stevenson had 21 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown. I think they got a good 1-2 punch, Wiggs, there in Patriots. I think it's going to be a benefit for Gibson to have a lesser amount of carries because I think that'll make him a little bit more effective. The big surprise here for me was Hunter Henry coming out with eight catches, 109 yards. Their receiving core is just not doing anything there. I mean, Polk had a touchdown, but I mean, but he had 12 yards receiving. Nobody else had any receiving. Uh, yeah, this was an interesting game from the aspect of uh, you know it was a little bit closer than I thought, but Wiggs.
Yeah, it was a lot closer. I thought honestly Seattle was going to at least beat them by like 10 plus points here in this game, but it was, a 3-point game there, so a lot closer than I expected. Me personally, I would love to just see the Patriots give Drake May the start. Not that Brissett's playing bad, but I think with the stat line that Brissett's put up in these first 2 weeks, he's averaged around 150 yards each time. I think why not just give Drake May the start, because I feel like he could come in and do the exact same thing, throwing for 150 yards. He just might make a few more mistakes, but I don't know. That might be a little hot take this early, but I would just love to see them throwing Drake May into the mix here and seeing what he could do, because I think the run game would be roughly the same, and I think Drake May could literally do the same thing with his running backs and at least the tight end throwing him the ball. So
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Wiggs. I think that the fact that Brissett won their game last week, though, I think that is what they're looking at. I think, if they start losing multiple games here, they're definitely going to probably look at that.
yeah, I would just rather them start the guy they drafted in the first 5 picks there, rather than sitting here behind Brissett.
I don't disagree with you. Don't disagree with you one bit. Give the guy a shot.
Giants Commanders, the game of field goals almost.
Wow, yeah, this was crazy. I mean, Washington came out with a win. I will say this: Daniel Jones actually looked better in this game than he did the first game. I mean, not that it was, at least he didn't turn the ball over, right, Wiggs?
Yeah.
I thought Singletary had a better game than I expected. Russian, I didn't think he was going to have as big a game as he did. He had 95 yards on a touchdown. So, but one thing I was happy about, and I know Wiggs was happy about, is I think this was the breakout game for Neighbors. That's just my opinion. Neighbors, 10 receptions, 127 yards, and a touchdown. I think that this was the start for Neighbors. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. And listen, this Giants team, their defense is better than is a decent defense. If they can figure it out with Danny Jones on offense, they're going to be a better team than people think. And then on the flip side of things, listen, Jaden Daniels, he didn't have the same type of game as he did last week, but geez, he was 23 for 29, Wigs, only six incompletions for 226 yards. Brian Robinson Jr. We talked about this earlier this year, and I told you I had a good feeling about him and stuff. He's coming out here, 17 carries, 133 yards, and he was, he only had one reception for 3 yards. Eckler's taken more of that receiving type role, which is kind of what I thought was going to happen here. I was a little surprised that they didn't get the ball to McLaurin more. Kind of been disappointing so far. I'm hoping they can figure that out because McLaurin is a really talented receiver. But it doesn't surprise me that Zach Ertz, one of their tight ends, was the leading receiver with Jaden Daniels. And Daniels only carried 10 times for 44 yards, so he did reduce that. Even though that this was the game of field goals and stuff, I think this was a good step um, for Daniel's progression, and hopefully he just keeps getting better. What do you think, Wiggs?
Yeah, I think the Giants actually looked a lot better here in this game. I'll give them that credit. I know the Washington defense isn't as good as the Vikings was there in that week one, but um, you look at them, Daniel Jones threw for 2 touchdowns, and then Devin Singletary ran for one as well. So they threw 3 touchdowns. They went for quite a few different 2-point conversions, but couldn't like succeed on those. They're the only team this week to score 3 touchdowns and lose a game to a team that kicked all field goals. So it was kind of funny to see that happen throughout the game, but I think Daniel Jones did what he needed to do. He needed to find his receiver there in Malik Neighbors. I think this needs to be a consistent thing here, week in and week out. He needs to be getting at least 8 receptions a game, and targeted a lot. I think Wandale Robinson's production could go up just a little bit from that. Like having him at like 5 or 6 would be good as well.
It was nice to see him get a touchdown too in this
Yeah.
game.
Yep.
So I think because they got a good young core of receivers here.
Yeah, and I think having Singletary there as a running back isn't the worst thing. He was one of the guys I said to start this week, and he actually kind of popped off a little bit there, dropping like 15 or 16 points there for you guys. So it was good to hit on one of those this week here, and I could totally see Singletary having a decent year, not like a crazy year, but if he continues to run the ball this good, I think that'll only help Neighbors out because they won't just have to sit there and worry about Malik Neighbors on the field. And if Wandale keeps coming out and catching the ball, I think they'll be worrying about a lot more than just one guy. And I think Daniel Jones, if he can continue to build this relationship there with Neighbors and Wandale Robinson, we could very well see him going for 250 yards a game. He just needs to be consistent and I don't know, build some confidence. He does not look confident on the field at all.
Yeah. Well, and listen, I don't want to rag on Singletary, but I think of Singletary the same way as I think of Madison. I think he needs to have another solid running back in the backfield, and he needs to, that's where he's the best. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon just quite yet because the Redskins Commanders defense is still a mess, and so if Singletary comes out and has a couple consistent games where he's getting around 100 yards, then maybe I'll jump on that bandwagon.
And then on the other side of things, Jaden Daniels had a good game, but for crying out loud, you need to finish a drive. You were within the 10-yard line 6 different times yesterday, rushing touchdown, throwing a touchdown. Something needs to happen there. You can't just sit there and not score touchdowns. You got lucky you won this game because you kicked 7 field goals and beat the Giants by 7 or 3. So I don't know. Just finish a drive. That's the only thing I could knock here in this game. He looked good passing the ball outside of that, 10 to 15 yards to the end zone, but not a bad game there from I think either side. It was a divisional match, so I think we kind of expected it to be closer, but
They do have to work that. You know what? Part of that. People are going to blame the quarterback, but you know what? Um, we went through this with Kevin O'Connell. Last year. When we get in the red zone, their play calling just goes. They tank it. And stuff. You got to get creative down in the red zone and stuff. And with Jaden's legs and Robinson and the weapons, that get creative, and they're not doing that. You got to finish the drives. You got to get creative with your rookie quarterback, and you can't just think you're going to jam the ball up the middle or whatever. So get creative and within the red zone because you're lucky that you were playing the Giants because any other team you would have probably got your butt kicked.
yeah. And if you think about it, if they finish, 3 or 4 of those drives, this is a blowout in favor of the Commanders, and they look insane. They would have had at least 40 points in this game if they finished drives. So Chargers Panthers.
Yeah, no surprises here. I think we called this one Wiggs when we talked about this. J.K. Dobbins looked really good. 17 carries, 131 yards, a TD. And Gus Edwards had 18 carries. So they're kind of splitting them 50-50,
Yep.
and I think they're, which doesn't surprise me with Harbaugh. I think the big surprise on the Charger side in this game was Quentin Johnston coming down with 2 touchdowns and 51 yards on 5 receptions. I would have thought that McConkey would have been maybe more of a target here, but it is what it is. Again, Herbert 130 yards. He only had 20 attempts. This is the kind of games you're going to see from Herbert this year, though, because Harbaugh likes to run the ball. I mean, they ran the ball. What was it? Between Gus and Dobbins, they ran the ball 35 times, and then there was 9 other carries in there. So they ran it for over 40 times. So that's crazy. And then on the flip side of it with the Panthers, listen, they just announced today Bryce Young is getting benched for Andy Dalton. Uh, it's a shame, but after looking at it a little bit more, Bryce Young doesn't have anybody to blame but himself. I mean, their offensive line is one of the best ranked offensive lines this year. He's one of the least pressured quarterbacks in the league. So in the first 2 games, he came out and threw for 84 yards on 18 completions with 1 interception. There was some of those incompletions where he completely missed his wide receivers that were wide open. So the Panthers need to figure this out. Hopefully, and Dalton can come in and give them a spark that they need. He's proven himself in the NFL. They need Hubbard and Sanders combined to at least rush for around 100 yards. It was nice to see Hubbard have 64, surprising, but they still only scored 3 points. And they've got they need to figure out how to get the ball in their playmakers' hands. They need to get the ball into Deontay Johnson's hands. They need to get the ball into Adam Thielen's hands. They need to get the ball into Jadavian Sanders' hands. They need to do that, and they're just not doing it. I mean, their number one receiver yesterday was Tommy Tremble with three receptions for 23 yards. That's
he's
crazy.
The backup tight end.
I mean, so hopefully with the switch at quarterback, maybe that'll give them the spark that they need. But I will say this: they got a lot more issues other than their quarterback because their defense has not been playing great at all.
No, and I think part of the reason their defense might not be playing great either is because they can't extend any drives on the field.
That could be. I agree with you.
Their defense is on the field a lot. Like their offense has done nothing to help them in these first 2 weeks. So,
I'm just happy to see the coach is realizing they got an issue here and he's got to shake it up. I read what he said about it. He said he looked at the film. He made the decision that they needed to do this. He talked to, obviously the Panthers gave up a lot to get Bryce Young. So, it's not like it was a decision he could just up and make without, talking to some of the other powers that be and stuff. But at least he had after seeing the film, he made, a decision, which tells me that this, he's not trying to be a puppet coach. He's in there. He wants to win games. He's trying to get them in a position to start winning.
Yeah, and I was really high on Bryce Young going into the season, but even with these added weapons around him, it's just looking grim right now. And now he's got the bench, and who knows if we'll ever see him start again.
I think he might, he could end up like Geno Smith. I think he just needs to get into the right situation. Unfortunately for Bryce Young, when he was drafted last year, there was a lot of dissension within the organization on who to draft, and I think that they really never surrounded him. They were trading away all their dang weapons, so they never they never put him in a good situation to start with. So a fresh start may be what he needs and stuff, just like Geno Smith. And look at Geno Smith now. I mean, he's not. Is he the greatest quarterback in the league? No, but he's a solid starter.
He got out of the Jets, and now he looks pretty solid. So, I mean, it's kind of just like other quarterbacks.
Justin Fields. Yeah, I think just a change of scenery.
Darnell Minshew when he got off the Jaguars.
I'm not giving up on him yet. I think that there's still talent there. I think he just needs to find the right coach.
Yeah, and let's be real. There's certain quarterbacks out there that are injury prone that are starters right now, so I wouldn't doubt it if he ends up on some other team this
year. Yeah, I don't see that happening. They won't make a move like that.
But on the Chargers side of things, J.K. Dobbins is looking good.
Yeah, Dobbins is looking good.
Genuinely surprised by that, and I shouldn't be because his stats before like injuries were pretty good, but now he's been on the field for 2 weeks in a row. Now we just need to see that consistent, but. I would love to see Herbert throw more, but I can't really knock them because they got 2 running backs that are capable when healthy.
Yep.
As soon as they are not healthy, that's when we'll probably see them throwing the ball more. Saints Cowboys.
Wow, this is you know what? Mike Zimmer is going to have nightmares around Alvin Kamara because Kamara did this against the Vikings. I mean, when they
6 touchdown
he
game
had
in
six
London.
touchdowns against the Vikings when Zimmer was the head coach. Now Zimmer's the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, and they just get trounced. I mean, listen, Derek Carr, 44 points, but he only threw for 243 yards, which is
And
crazy.
completed 11 of them. He was
11,
like
11 to
averaging like
16.
a
I think
ton of
I read
yards.
a stat that his average completion was what, 24
Yeah,
yards
it
or
was like
something.
24, 26.
So that's crazy. He still did throw for one interception, had two TD passes. But Kamara, oh my God, what can you say? He had 115 yards on 20 carries, 3 rushing touchdowns. He had receptions for 65 yards and another touchdown. Uh, Shaheed is, I don't know. He's starting to look like Carr's favorite target here for the Saints. He had 4 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown. It was nice to see Olave come out with at least something in this game. He had four receptions for 81 yards. So this Saints team with that defense, if they keep this up, you know what, they're surprising me this year. I wasn't expecting this. And then on the flip side, let me just tell you this: the Cowboys. I don't know what the Cowboys' deal is. Their defense just fell apart from week. I mean, their defense looked like the best defense in the league in week one, and they just fell apart. Their offense, you know, Dak threw almost 40 times. He was 27 to 39 for 293 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. They don't have a rushing game to speak of, which is, I mean, Rico he averaged 4 yards a carry on 7 carries for 30 yards. I get it; they were behind most of the game, but they didn't have the balance that they need there, which is why they ended up in the position that they were in. Not to mention their defense didn't do them any favors. CeeDee Lamb only had 4 receptions for 90 yards and a touchdown. I mean, it was an okay game for CeeDee. So I just, this Cowboy. I saw a video Jerry Jones walking into the locker room, and he was not happy after the game. So I can only imagine what the conversation was when he was in the locker room.
Yeah, I don't have really too much to say about this game outside of the fact that Alvin Kamara is still a beast at 29. So
He's
he's
a beast.
RB1 right now. He's got the most points scored in fantasy. So running backs.
Yeah, so Packers and Colts, you know what? I'll be honest, I was really surprised at the outcome of this game. I really did think the Colts were going to win this one with Malik Willis having to be the quarterback and replace Jordan Love. Uh, Anthony Richardson, he just did not have a good game. Doesn't surprise me though. That Packers defense is better than people give him credit. He threw for three interceptions. He's another guy where the coaches they need to figure out how to design the offense around his strengths. And Jonathan Taylor rushed for 103 yards on 12 carries, which is crazy, almost 9 yards a carry. Richardson only ran 4 times for 37 yards, so it's not like Richardson was pulling the ball down and running and stuff. I just think that they're struggling all around here on offense. They need to get Michael Pittman more involved. He only had 3 receptions for 21 yards. Alec Pierce was their leading receiver with 5 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. So, I don't know. They have their defense didn't really play that bad. They just need to figure it out on the offensive end. And then on the flip side, what can you say? The Packers defense came to play at home. Malik Willis, you know what? He didn't do a lot, but you know what he didn't do? He didn't turn the ball over and he managed the game and he did what he needed to do. He only threw the ball 14 times, completed 12 of those 14 attempts for 122 yards and a touchdown. I mean, obviously they came in with a game plan because Jacobs rushed 32 times for 151 yards, and I think I said this in our video. Wiggs, is that, I mean, because I know you picked the Packers, but I said that in order for the Packers to win, they needed Josh Jacobs to have a good game, and that's what they did.
Yep.
And so it didn't surprise me. Willis ran for 6 carries for 41 yards. So, the receivers they didn't do much. I mean, Dobbs was their leading receiver with three receptions and 62 yards. And it was nice to see Wicks involved and get a touchdown there. He only had 26 yards receiving. But you know what? They didn't really have to do anything because Jacobs was just running all over that Indianapolis defense. The only thing I will say is it's surprising that he rushed for 151 yards and they only had 16 points.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just them trying to kill clock throughout the majority. I don't know. They just didn't. They didn't make it look like they wanted to rely on Willis much at all. And from the get go, like I think on their first drive, Jacobs ran the ball like 6 or 7 times and went downfield. And I think Willis only threw twice on that drive, one of them for a touchdown. So I think they're going to lean on Jacobs until Love is back. I think maybe this week they throw a little bit more. Maybe they're just trying to get him a little comfortable against a Colts defense that apparently can't do much against the run right now. I mean, they gave up well over 200 yards rushing across like 6 different guys. So,
well, I think he hasn't been with the Packers that long too, so Willis might still be getting up to speed on the offense. So, but hey, the big thing, when you're coming into a situation like that is don't make mistakes. Yeah. Don't be the reason why you lose the game. And he wasn't the reason. He's the reason. Him not making mistakes is the reason why they won.
Yeah, and then looking at like the Colts side of things, I'm still not sold on Richardson just yet. Like I get like they're not using him the way they should be using him, but I don't know. It's kind of reliant on him making like one big play a game, and I feel like it shouldn't just be reliant on a big play every single game.
Well, you're not going to be successful if you're only completing 50% of your attempts.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, so either they're I didn't really get to see a lot of that game, so either they're just not calling the right play calls for him or whatever, but they gotta look at that, and they need to figure out what is it that he does well, and they need to build off of that.
Yeah, and like you said, they need to get Pittman more involved. That is your best receiver out on the field. Right. Really hard to get him the ball.
Exactly, because Richardson, I think, is really talented, and I don't think he's going to be one of these guys that's not going to be a good quarterback in the league. I think that they just need to reevaluate his strengths and look at that.
Browns, Jags.
Yeah, listen, again, I was surprised at this one, but Deshaun Watson did come out. He played a lot better game this time, than he did their first game. He threw for 186 yards. 22 of 34. I mean, I'd like to see his completion percentage a little bit better, but he did have a lot better game. The big surprise for me here is that Jerome Ford is basically splitting his lost carries to Devontae Foreman. Foreman had 14 carries for 42 yards. Ford had 6 carries for 64. Plus, Ford, I don't think, was really involved in the passing game as much as he's been in the past. It was nice to see Judy come out though and actually have a game. I don't know what's going on with Amari Cooper. He had a big drop in this game. I don't know. Something's going on in his head, I think. But on the flip side of things, boy, I don't know what the deal is with the Jaguars offense. They just can't get anything going. Trevor Lawrence, again, completed less than 50% of his attempts. He was 14 for 30. Listen, I don't care what anybody says about Ridley last year. Ridley was better than everybody gave him credit for last year. Lawrence could not hit him in a lot of their games, and this is just another proof of it. Lawrence's completion percentage was really low. Travis Etienne had 52 yards on 13 carries with a touchdown. The one bright spot in this game for their offense was Brian Thomas Jr. He had 2 receptions for 94 yards. But you know what? I don't know what's going on with their offense, but they need to figure it out. Trevor Lawrence needs to figure it out. I mean, you've got a talented backfield in Etienne and Bigsby. I know Bigsby ended up getting hurt in this game, but Dearness Johnson came in and actually played pretty well. You've got a talented tight end again who was hurt, that got hurt in pregame warmups. But you got Brian Thomas Jr., who's still looking really good, one of those rookie wide receivers. But what's going on with Christian Kirk? Gabe Davis. Yeah, he had 3 receptions for 43 yards. I don't know. They got to figure something out.
Yeah, well, I think both these teams do. Both of them have been pretty disappointing so far for me. That's Titans.
Yeah, this one again, not a surprise here. I thought this was going to be a close game. I picked the Jets. I definitely think that Rodgers, got the offense back on track at least, without making mistakes and stuff. He didn't have to do too much. He completed 18 of 30 passes for 176 yards and two touchdowns. Brees Hall looked really, looked like Brees Hall. He had over 110, 114 yards combined, 62 rushing, 52 receiving. He had a receiving touchdown. The nice surprise in this game for me was Braden Allen. I think that this guy is going to be more involved in their offense going forward. He had 7 carries for 33 yards and a touchdown. He was also active in their passing game with 2 receptions for 23 yards and a touchdown. So he had 2 touchdowns. Garrett Wilson didn't have a huge game, four receptions for 57 yards, but he didn't have to. So on the flip side of things, Will Levis is working his way onto the bench. I think he could be the next quarterback that we see on the bench here. I know that people may think that's a surprise. I like Will Levis. I think he just needs to figure it out. But he is not in the good graces with his coach right now. He made another what I would consider bonehead play, a turnover in the red zone. His coach was extremely upset with him after that. He needs to figure it out. He didn't have a bad game from a sense of completion percentage. He did throw for 192 yards and a touchdown and 1 interception. He just needs to eliminate the mistakes and let the guys, the talent around him, do it. Pollard was 17 carries for 62 yards. Calvin Ridley, four receptions, 77 yards and a touchdown. 1 rush for 10 yards and a touchdown. He was a surprise to me. I didn't think that he would come out and do that, but he did.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Will Levis needs to obviously get rid of the interceptions because I think he had a really bad one last week as well. And in those key moments, you need to be completing those and not making bonehead mistakes. Just kind of use your head, use your intuition. Like that should never happen. And then on the other side of things, I was a little annoyed from a fantasy standpoint myself with how much Braylon Allen was touching the ball, but not much can happen there. They got 2 talented running backs, and I can see why they're using him. But
you don't got nothing to whine about. Brees Hall still had a good week for you.
Man, another touchdown would have been nice though. Buccaneers Lions.
Well, this one, it doesn't surprise me. This is one of the games that I thought could have went either way. The Lions' biggest problem, I think, right now is they had the same problem last year. They just can't finish a game. They got to be able to finish a game. Baker Mayfield came out and had a really good game. 12 and 19, 185 yards, a touchdown. He had 1 interception, but Baker's found a home. What surprises me is that Baker was their leading rusher in this game at 34 yards. Bucky Irving was in there. Rashad White, he needs to figure it out. He's struggling right now. He only averaged 1.8 yards a carry. That's terrible. 10 carries for 18 yards. Chris Godwin had a breakout game here. 7 receptions, 117 yards, 1 touchdown. That's probably because, Evans was attracting most of the attention on defense. So, and then on the flip side of things, it was nice to see Amon St. Brown come out and have 11 receptions for 119 yards. Jared Goff threw for 55 times, crazy, 307 yards, and he threw 2 interceptions. Obviously, that's not good. And that was probably the difference in the game for this one is those interceptions. I was a little surprised that they were able to rush the ball as well as they did, because Gibbs was able to come up with 84 yards on 6.5 yards a carry, which is pretty good. And the other surprise here is McBride. I don't know McBride. Did he even have
Laporta?
or Laporta? I'm sorry. Laporta only had 2 receptions for 13 yards, so that was a little surprising to me. Um, and Montgomery was doing Montgomery things in this offense. He had a touchdown. He had 70 yards total between passing and receiving. And then Jamison Williams, to me, is defining himself as a solid start in fantasy. He had another decent game, 5 receptions for 79 yards.
Yeah, Laporta's the biggest surprise here for me. I don't know what's going on there. Like, I feel like Laporta should be getting the ball a lot more than what Goff was giving him. I mean, especially on 55 attempts there. So I don't know if Goff was just missing him during the game because I didn't get to see all of it, but it just doesn't sit well when you have the top tight end from last year hardly touching the ball right now. So
Well, Jamison Williams is starting to define himself, so he may be taken away from Laporta.
he could be, but at the same rate, like we've seen teams have guys get that many targets and still have a solid tight end. So it's a little
Yeah,
interesting to say the least.
well, and yeah, Montgomery and Gibbs both had 11 receptions combined, so
And I don't think the Lions had a touchdown yesterday. Well, they did have Montgomery with the touchdown. So yeah, I mean Goff not throwing for touchdowns either. Maybe that kind of affects it because they do like Laporta in the red zone. But Godwin looked good again. Props to him. It's good to see him back on the field and performing well. Back to back 100-yard games there for him. So I think this is the most surprising one right here: the Raiders versus
yeah,
Ravens.
I don't know what's going on with the Ravens right now. Obviously that first game against the Chiefs, you know, I get it. It was the Chiefs. This game, I thought for sure Ravens at home they would have, um, you know, come to play a little bit better. But I think we talked about this yesterday. Crosby is a beast on defense for the Raiders, and their defense is strong, and they kept them in this game. And Minshew actually had a really good game, 30 completions out of 38 attempts for 276 yards and a touchdown and interception. So, the big surprise to me in this one is how consistently they're going to Brock Bowers, 9 receptions for 98 yards. Adams ended up with 110 yards with a touchdown. So they're spreading the ball around. It was nice to see Samir White active in the passing game a little bit. They need to get him going rushing. But listen, I said it before. He was going to struggle against the Ravens. The Ravens are hard against the rush. So it didn't surprise me that he didn't have that great of a game there. So, and then on the flip side, what Lamar Jackson threw 34 times. Wow, that's crazy. 247 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Derrick Henry actually had a pretty decent game, 4.7 yards a carry, which against a tough Raiders defense. So it was nice to see that. 84 yards and a touchdown. Lamar rushed for 45 yards. Zay Flowers, I think I mentioned this when we were talking about this game prior, when we were talking about the matchups. He came out and had a game I thought he would, 91 yards and a touchdown. Mark Andrews, was back in the mix for 4 receptions for 51 yards. I just can't put my finger on it. Maybe they, Lamar just was getting confused with the Raiders defense. I don't know. I would have thought that they would have came out and played a lot better. I was a little surprised that their defense gave up 26 points.
Yeah, it was really surprising to me because they're actually looking good at the start of the game. I actually had them on my fantasy team as a defense. They still put up good points because they got quite a few sacks in the game, but I was really shocked they gave up more than 14. I'm gonna be honest. I thought they were gonna smoke the Raiders here, but
Especially at home.
yeah, props to the Raiders. They came out and played. Minshew looked good, like you said, and Brock Bowers is a beast. I think we knew that coming into the season, and I was surprised the Raiders took him after taking Mayer the year before, but that was a really good pickup, and I think he's really going to benefit here in this offense.
No, I agree. Totally agree.
Rams Cardinals, another surprise.
Listen, the Rams, if they didn't have bad luck, they wouldn't have luck at all. They're losing players left and right. Cup went down in this game. They're not sure how long he's going to be out. I haven't heard anything yet on that. Stafford, 19 to 27 for 216 yards. They just couldn't do what they do on their offense because the Cardinals came out and took a 21-0 lead right out of the
Yeah,
bat.
literally in like the first 8 minutes or something like
So
that.
that forced them to change their game plan because I think that they like to get Kyron involved earlier in the game. They really couldn't do that. Uh, you know, so so Kyron only ended up with 12 carries on 25 yards and a touchdown. At least he was active in the passing game with 4 receptions and 27 yards. Demarcus Robinson, I think I mentioned this before. I thought he was going to have a decent game. He only had 2 receptions, but it was for 50 yards. They just couldn't get anything going on offense. That Cardinals defense is tough, and and Kyler Murray, man, he came out firing 17 to 21, 266 yards for 3 touchdowns. I tell you what, this offense, if they keep this up, Marvin Harrison Jr. 4 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. When Kyler gets scrambling around and can find his receivers, man, they're going to be tough. I was a little surprised that Connor came out and rushed for 21 times and 122 yards and a touchdown. I wasn't expecting that at all. But it didn't surprise me that McBride had 6 receptions for 67 yards. I wasn't expecting the 130 yards from Marvin Harrison. Just like we talked about Neighbors, maybe this was his breakout game.
Yeah, and I think their connection, like I feel like they need to always take a shot at the start of the game. They literally came out and took a shot at Harrison right away, and he had a 60-some-yard touchdown. And then they came back the next drive, took another shot, and he got like another 40-yard touchdown. Like I feel like it's something where they need to establish taking a shot to him early in the game. And if it's not early in the game, hit him with the second like quarter shot. Like this is someone who can go up and get the ball anywhere. He didn't show anything last week, but he did show a lot of progression this week. I think a lot of that was just due to their game plan and the plays they were calling. I don't think they're necessarily calling everything they should have last week for Harrison. And I think they changed that around this week, got him the ball, and now you kind of can see what he can do a little bit. Now it's just a matter if he does it consistently. James Conner, like you said, was a surprise, but I think realistically, they were out on the field a lot, so I think that Rams defense was really tired. And towards that second half, they were running the ball a lot more than they were passing it because they already had like a 24-point lead or something going into halftime. It was crazy. So
Yeah, and Murray, he rushed for 59 yards on 5 carries himself, and he was just kind of running around back
yeah,
there and doing what Murray does. And if he keeps that up, he's going to have a fantastic year.
yep. Bengals Chiefs.
um, Listen, this was a lot closer than I thought it would be. To be quite honest with you, I didn't think it was going to be that. But then I read a statistic that Joe Burrow's kind of had the Chiefs' number the last couple of years, so I guess I wasn't that much surprised that Burrow, came out 23 to 36 for 250 yards and 2 TDs. They just cannot get their running game going. I think they're going to miss Mixon this year for sure. I think Mixon and Boyd are going to be 2 guys that they're going to really miss this year. Probably Mixon more than Boyd. Gazinski came out with 7 receptions for 91 yards. And let's see, Jamar Chase, 4 receptions, 35 yards. Yep, that's the top paying receiver. That's the numbers a top paying receiver should actually be producing, right? So,
do you think part of him not wanting to come back to the Bengals might be impacting Joe Burrow looking at him?
I don't know. I
Joe
do
Burrow
know
wasn't
that.
looking at him a lot yesterday at all.
Well, I know that he's getting a lot of double coverage. I want listen. I'm going to give Chase his props. He attracts attention from opposing defenses, but I think Chase's attitude has really turned off a lot of his teammates. I saw some video footage where he wasn't happy with some of the calls the refs were making, and Burrow had to push him away, and him and Burrow had words and stuff. So I think a lot of his teammates are just getting sick of the show, and they want him to either come out and play or just go away. So that's just my opinion. And then on the flip side of it, the Chiefs. Listen, Pacheco had a great game, but unfortunately he got hurt. It sounds like he broke his fibula or something in his. I think it was something in his ankle. They broke. They're expecting that he's going to have to go on. He's going to go on IR, and he's probably going to even miss more games than that. So unfortunate loss for the Chiefs. I really like Pacheco. I think he's just a really hard runner, really great, asset to that offense. They're going to miss him. They really are, because they're going to need some of their other running backs to step up. So Mahomes, he didn't have a great game. 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He just did what he needed to do. Rashid Rice, 5 receptions for 75 yards and a touchdown. Uh, and Pacheco was active in the passing game when he was out there. But let me just tell you this: Kelsey was a non-factor in this game, and
Worthy was irrelevant.
yeah, Worthy was a non-factor. They're going to need some of these guys to step up going forward if they want to be able to have success, and they're going to need Perrine to step up, and Perrine and Steele to step up in the backfield if they're going to want to continue to win games.
Yeah, because Heller's still out too, so might be time to bring back Jerick McKinnon at this point.
Yeah, they're going to have to figure something out.
Low scoring in Broncos Steelers game.
Yeah, this one, it doesn't surprise me. We talked about this. The Steelers defense is looking really good this year. Again, a typical Steelers defense. The Broncos couldn't get anything going. But here's the thing that I liked about this game. Fields came out. He did what he needed to do. He completed 13 out of 20 attempts, 117 yards, 1 touchdown. You know what? Did he have a great game? No. But he was playing a really tough Broncos defense, and he didn't make mistakes. Najee had 69 yards on 17 carries with a little over 4 yards a carry. Warren had 9 carries for 42 yards, almost 5 yards a carry. Fields rushed for 8 yards and 27 yards. So he led the offense. He took what the Broncos defense gave him. He was targeting Freeman. He got Pickens the ball a couple times. Nobody really stood out there, but it was against a tough Broncos defense. And you know what? I'm happy for Fields because I really think that he got a screw job in Chicago, and I hope he continues to build off of this. The more they win games, the less I think Russell Wilson's even going to be an option. And then on the flip side, the Broncos are going through some growing pains with their rookie quarterback. Um, you know what? I don't really think it's a bad thing for them, though. I do think Bo Nix is going to be a good quarterback in the league. He went up against a tough defense in the Steelers. It doesn't surprise me he threw 2 interceptions. It doesn't, surprise me that he was the leading rusher because we talked about this in our matchup thing, right? Wiggs were Williams and McLeod. They need to figure something out with their running backs because they gotta help out their rookie quarterback, and they're not. And none of their receivers, to me, Josh Reynolds, he stepped up four receptions for 93 yards, but they need Sutton to step up here. They need to get their tight end more involved in this game. Javonte Williams was active in the passing game, which was nice to see, but they need to figure out how to get him yards.
I agree with everything you said there, and like you said, Fields is coming in and winning games. I said this yesterday in a tweet I put out. I'm like, imagine if the Bears would have kept Fields and drafted Harrison Jr. as their third wide receiver while trading for Keenan Allen. It would have been a nut-like team, but he's not throwing for a lot of yards right now, but he's also played 2 defenses that are pretty strong early in the season. What matters is he's coming out with dubs, and that's what he's done.
He's not making mistakes.
Yep.
That's the big thing.
Moving on to the last game, Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, this was a lot closer than I thought. I will tell you this. The Bears defense actually looks really good. I mean, their defense is carrying them right now. I know Wiggs is really critical of Caleb Williams right now, and I get it. Caleb Williams completed 23 of 37 attempts, which isn't great. It's a little over 50%, right? So, like what, 53% or something? 174 yards and 2 interceptions. I just, DJ Moore had 6 receptions for 53 yards. They need to get DJ Moore more involved in this offense. They need to figure out how to get him the ball. Williams was looking for Undunzi, but they need to get him involved. It didn't help that Allen was out. It was nice to see them actually throw to Komet and stuff. But they really didn't have a running game to speak. Williams was the leading rusher, so their coaching staff needs to figure out, how to get. Just like I said earlier, they need to build around his strengths, so that they can figure out exactly what Williams does best, and they need to get DJ more involved in this offense, and whether that's slants, whatever, like Wiggs would say, I agree with that. And then on the flip side, I thought that C.J. Stroud looked really well, 23 of 36, 260 yards on a touchdown. Mixon struggled a little bit, but that Bears defense looked really good. Plus, he got hurt. But I'll tell you, Nico Collins, Wiggs, man, I think he's gonna have a monster year this year. 8 receptions, 135 yards, and 1 touchdown, and that was going against a really tough defensive backfield in the Bears. You know what, Nico's gonna. I think he's gonna have an explosive year this year. But props to the Bears. I thought they came out and they played a good game. They just need more out of their offense because their defense is really running on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, the Bears defense is looking good. I will give Nico Collins some props here on the side of the Texans. I thought going into this year, he would not be popping off like this. I thought Stephon Diggs would be taking away from his production quite a bit more than he is currently. I also thought Tank Dell would be chipping away a little bit at it, but that's not the case. Stroud's looking for Nico Collins as, safety net basically in that offense, and I like the comparison they threw up on the game last night of comparing Nico Collins to Andre Johnson, because that man, when he catches the ball, he doesn't care. He's lowering his shoulder. He's trying to pick up as many yards as he wants. He's being as physical as someone like Andre Johnson used to be in this Texans offense, which is really cool to see. And then, like you said, they need to figure out something with Caleb Williams in this offense, because I know it's only 2 weeks, but he has not looked that great in my eyes. Like you said, I'm very critical about it. He's honestly looked pathetic so far. He hasn't thrown a single touchdown. He's thrown quite a few picks already.
I read a stat where they said J.J. McCarthy's thrown as many touchdowns as Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix.
Yep, so something,
and he's on IR.
Yeah, so something needs to happen here. It like I was telling you earlier today and last night, they need to start figuring something out. Like whether that's just rolling Caleb Williams out of the pocket every time and just running slants with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and just getting them the ball there across the field and start doing that. But you need to make sure Caleb Williams isn't going to be like consistently throwing across his body and he's setting to throw it or not making dumb plays. But like you said, their line last night looked like crap. He could not get comfortable. But even then, like as a coaching staff, you need to adjust, and you weren't even doing that. You're sitting there and just putting him in war over and over and over again. You never tried getting him out of the pocket. You're trying to force him to be, in my eyes, a Josh Dobbs of last year, sitting there and making him sit in a pocket when he should be on the move and making plays. Because if he can't throw it, Caleb Williams is more than capable of running the dang ball and picking up the yards. He did it a few times yesterday. Get him out of the pocket, get it so he's comfortable, and then we should see the production of DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, even Keenan Allen, go up. But so far, I'm not impressed by Caleb Williams. He's, to me, right now on the same level as Bryce Young, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not going that far. I disagree with you on that point. I think Caleb Williams is he's in a much better situation than Bryce Young. I just think that his coaches need to, like you said, Wiggs, they need to adjust their play calling, and they need to do things around Caleb's strengths. I think that Caleb's got all the ability in the world, but when you got an offensive line that's not going to give you the protection that you need, I think this is a whole different scenario than Bryce Young. Bryce Young has had the protection, right, and he can't do anything. Williams is in the exact opposite position, and to your point, that's where you got to make adjustments. So hopefully this week they're going to make adjustments on some of the play calling that they do, and let Caleb Williams get the ball out of his hands and into his playmakers. Get it to Swift, get it to Moore, get it to Komet. You know what I mean? And mix it up. You know, I mean, you can do things with these guys to get Williams in a rhythm and stuff, but you're probably going to have to roll him out or do
You're
something
gonna
at
have to
the
do it
offensive line.
with what you did with Fields last year.
Yeah,
You got to get the guy on the move.
you got to get him on the move. You know, because so that's where I think that the difference is between Williams and Young. You know what I'm saying? Young, he's had the protection and he's not producing. Williams is running for his life every game because he doesn't have the protection and they're not adjusting. I think if they adjusted, I think you're going to see a turnaround in Williams.
Yeah, I will say though, like in my honest eyes, the Washington line is not like much better than the Bears line. Obviously, they're a little bit better, but Jaden Daniels is getting stuff done right
Yeah, but they're also, I think, also um, trying to adjust there in Washington as well. You know what I mean? So where they're trying to work towards Daniel's strengths,
now. No,
right?
yeah, I get what you're saying.
So, um, but I agree with you right now, and I think we talked about this on our head-to-head conversation with these two, with Williams and Daniels. Right now, Daniels is the better quarterback.
Easily, he's the best drafted quarterback.
So you know, but again, a lot of that has to deal with go to where you end up and how they use you, right? Because look at when Andy Reid drafted Patrick Mahomes. Everybody was criticizing Andy Reid for that. But you know what Andy Reid did? He does what any great coach does. He swallows his pride and he designs the offense around his quarterback's strengths.
And like what you're talking about, you look at Jaden Daniels right now. He's actually succeeded in these first two games. Like it was a bit rough of a first half last week, but like from that second half onwards, he's looked really good. I mean, his passing this week looked like insanely good for a rookie.
Right.
And he wasn't even using his best receiver that much in McLaurin. Like,
right. And that's because his confidence is building.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen with the Bears is that they don't figure something out. Caleb Williams' confidence is going to go down, and he's gonna regress.
Yeah.
And that's not what they want to have happen here. That's why they have to make adjustments with him and figure out what his strengths are, what plays he's comfortable with running and stuff like that. And if they do that, and they let him get the ball in their playmakers' hands, you're going to find they're going to have more success. Because I'm telling you, with that defense that they have, the Bears should be competing for the division title this year because they actually have a really good defense. So, with that said, I think we covered all the games, right, Wiggs? Yep. Tonight we got the Falcons and the Eagles. So that should be a good game. The Eagles are going to be without Brown, but that should be a good game. So we'll probably do a quick recap of that as well. But just like always, check us out at fantasyfoolsppr on YouTube. We're also out on Snapchat, X, TikTok, Instagram. Subscribe, like, share. Let us know if you got any questions, any suggestions. We just want to give you another platform that you can go to, and hopefully you find this beneficial. And until next time, we'll see you soon.